This is It's Not What You Know. Hello, I'm Miles Jupp. It's often said that it's not what you know, it's who you know. This is why no dinner guest would ever mind you serving up a breast of blatantly undercooked chicken, so long as you can produce documentary evidence that your wife's godmother is Delia Smith. Or why no one will mind you driving a gold-plated coach and horses through the tattered remains of the British economy, as long as your family own a wallpapering business. On this show, we display an arrogant disregard for what you know. It's just who you know, and let me make this abundantly clear so as to prevent any unpleasantness, how well you know them. Each of our three guests has nominated someone they know well to answer a series of questions. Could be a friend, could be a family member, could simply be someone you've unexpectedly hit it off with while exchanging insurance details by the side of a busy trunk road. If my guests correctly predict the answers their nominees will give, they will score points. And what do points mean? Well, according to my dictionary, points or pointing is a technique to finish off or repair the joints of brickwork or masonry with mortar or cement. Pick up more of these repaired joints than any of your bitter rivals, and you could yet be limping off with tonight's star prize, a specially commissioned set of melamine coasters depicting the faces of everybody who has ever held down the role of weather presenter at TV AM for a period of time in excess of 6 months. From Wincy Willis to Ulrika Johnson, and, as I'm sure you can imagine, all points in between. There are 3 of them. So, with all that at stake, will you please welcome to tonight's panel Frankie Boyle, Diane Morgan and Alan Johnson. So, Frankie Boyle, a jewel in the crown of this country's fine tradition of family entertainment. A man whose career has demonstrated just how far one can get on the back of a smile, a twinkle, and the occasional bawdy comment. Linked with pretty much every job in show business, from Challenge TV's much-hyped remake of Supermarket Sweep to the vacancy that recently arose at the Vatican. Equally at home on the stages of holiday camps nationwide and at each of his many, many properties. Tell me, Frankie, how did you go about choosing someone for us to grill tonight?
I chose a pal of mine who should know me pretty well because I've known him for a very long time. So that was just my basic judgment.
Basic judgment, yeah. Right, OK.
Well, actually, he was the only person he was in the room when you asked me to do it.
Let's see who it is you picked.
Hi there, I'm Stuart. I'm from Glasgow and I'm a personal assistant, and I've known Frankie for a while through a mutual friend.
Yes, it's your mutual friend's friend, Stuart Muirhead. Next, we welcome Diane Morgan, actress, stand-up comic, and half of Radio 4's 2 episodes of MASH, a sketch double act who I have every confidence in saying could yet be a hail and pace for Generation X. Diane, what led you to choose your nominee for this evening?
Well, I thought I knew what he'd say. He's been my financial advisor and chauffeur for the last 30 years.
Right. Let's find out who it is.
My name's Peter. I'm retired now. I live in Bolton, and Diane is my daughter.
Yes, it's Diane's father, Peter Morgan. Now, some men are born great, some achieve greatness, others have greatness thrust upon them. Alan Johnson qualified in the last of these categories in 2004, when Tony Blair appointed him Secretary of State for Work and Pensions. Don't seem to remember the position being advertised, but again, it's who you know. In his trade union days, he prevented the privatisation of the post office, but he sadly failed to do anything to stop the habit of postmen leaving rubber bands all over people's doorsteps. Alan, let's have it. How did you pick your nominee tonight?
Well, I wanted to try to pick someone who, if they had a chance, would say something nice about me. It's someone who I would have liked to have been had I been taller, better looking and more musically talented.
Right, let's see who it is.
My name's Jamie Johnson and I'm a sound engineer. I live in Molesey in London, and Alan Johnson is my father.
That's right, it's Alan's son, Jamie Johnson. Well, it's just about time to start the show, but if you press the red button now, you should be able to turn on the television instead. Let's face it, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't time for Hollyoaks. Meanwhile, we'll continue with round 1. In this round, we ask your nominees some questions to find out what they know about you. You have to correctly guess how they answered those questions. Frankie Boyle, you're first up. We asked your friend Stuart, does cheeky comedian Frankie Boyle have any bad habits? If so, is there one that stands out?
I find it difficult to imagine one standing out.
Is there a catalogue? I mean, what might have made it to the shortlist?
All kinds of things, Miles. I can barely think of a single positive quality that I possess. That might just be a Scottish thing, though, do you know what I mean? That whole kind of negativity, but I suspect I'm right. Bad habits. I'm extremely absent-minded to the point of it being a quite serious disability in my life. I would imagine he's probably noticed that on the many times that I've asked him to try and find my keys or come and rescue me from somewhere. Yeah, probably that.
Let's find out. Stuart?
He's quite forgetful.
That sounds pretty much spot on to me, just a more efficient way of saying it. Dare I say, didn't get distracted halfway through.
If we'd both just said that, it would have been a nightmare.
2 points, Frankie. Hell of an opening, may I say. Next we turn to Diane Morgan. Diane, we asked your father, Peter, who is Diane's greatest inspiration? What do you think he said?
He probably said me. He probably thinks that he's my greatest inspiration.
Oh, I see, right. Me. Oh, I see. You've gone straight into the first person. You were acting out the role of your father there.
That was me doing my dad.
The accent was right. Because of the costume, I still was imagining.
Greatest inspiration? Well, it's either Mae West or Eric Morecambe, I'll be honest. But he probably said myself.
OK, Peter, who does Diane place on a pedestal?
It's either going to be Mae West, Groucho Marx, or Eric Morecambe.
Now then, what happens here? Well, you said he'd say himself, didn't you? And then you suggested these names, so I think that's... audience, a point?
Yes.
That, I think we can all agree, is democracy. Superb. 1 point there, Diane. And, gosh, yes, Eric Morecambe, he thought there, the man who single-handedly prevented the emergence of Ernie Wise as one of this country's preeminent serious dramatists. And now we turn for the first time to parliamentarian, trade unionist, and the man Nybevan could have been, Alan Johnson. Now, I understand you very nearly became a musician in your youth, being narrowly prevented only by a lack of success. Alan, we put this question to your son, Jamie. What was the name of the band your dad played in during the year 1966? Now, what was it? Will he get it right?
It was called The Area.
It was called The Area, no?
Will he get it right? I hope so. I played the one single we made to him every evening from the age of 3 to the age of 18. So I think he must get it right, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hope so. Jamie, name that toe-tapping combo.
The Area.
Very good, 2 points. It was worth it drumming it into him repeatedly in a sort of...
It was 5 pieces as well, it wasn't a combo, by the way. You should know that. Yeah.
Sorry, I should know that. 5 pieces.
School history, right.
How many are in a combo?
4.
4, all right. Is that a hard and fast rule?
Yeah, you can't change it.
I am not as au fait with rock as people think I am. Yep, take the length and breadth of all rock music and multiply it together, you have The Area. A narrow escape for the British public. I mean, you might have had the money, the fast cars, the fame and the girls, but we might never have had the alternative vote system of proportional representation that you so successfully championed. I think I've got that right. 2 points. Frankie's next. We asked Stuart, is there anything that annoys Frankie about modern life? Now...
How long's the show? Yeah, well, I mean, where do you want me to start? Really? I'm doing comic relief in a couple of days and I hate that. They didn't tell me it was comic relief. You know, it raises, what, £70 million, and we last year sold £1 billion worth of arms to Africa, so one country in Africa next year will get blown to smithereens, the next country along will get a visit from Lenny Henry, and they'll both feel bitterly jealous of each other. I suspect if it's something Stuart's heard me go on about, it's comedy critics. I don't like that.
Oh, really? Have you had any brush-ins?
I've never really felt people understand what jokes are. Do you know what I mean? The idea that jokes are a proposition rather than a position, and that you can say anything as a proposition. I think comedy is a way we came up with of saying, what about this, what about that, in a kind of safe way, without committing ourselves to horror. Do you know what I mean? You know, I saw a review recently where someone said, I'd feel more comfortable about this if he was a character. And you're like, you'd feel better about this if I was wearing a hat. That's what this is boiled down to. So he'll have picked up on that.
He'll have picked up on that. Right, okay, let's see. Stuart?
He hates people not understanding what comedy is.
People not understanding what comedy is. Well, we look forward to the head of radio comedy explaining that comment to listeners of the feedback programme. 2 points. And back once again to the Renegade Master, who is in this case Diane Morgan. Diane, we put this question to your dad. What kind of people most annoy Diane?
So many to choose from. People who walk really slowly. People who tell me to cheer up.
Whilst walking really slowly.
Yeah. What would he say? Yeah, I think he knows about the slow walking one. So he'd say slow walkers.
OK, let's ask your father his opinion.
People not walking fast enough in crowds.
Absolutely right. Do you go on about that at some length?
Yeah, I do. All the time.
Do you ring him each time it's happening to you?
He's one of the slow walkers.
2 points for Diane there. It is people who walk too slowly in crowds. And that is annoying, isn't it? I have to say, whenever I see those people in Tahrir Square, massing to demand their freedom, I can't help but feel sorry for those pedestrians who are simply trying to cross the square. Perhaps they're trying to keep a lunch appointment or return a library. But come on, guys, people are walking here. And now, as Tony Blair muttered after many an unsuccessful attempt to fill a cabinet position, finally we turn to Alan Johnson. Quite unfair. Quite unfair. Only, as Frankie would tell us, only a joke. Alan, we asked Jamie, of all the government departments that your dad headed up, which was his favourite? There's a lot of choices. At the risk of sounding like BBC Breakfast's Bill Turnbull, I'm now going to read a list of jobs you've had and then look at you in lieu of an actual question. Work and pensions, education and skills, trade and industry, health and safety, eggs and bacon, and people and places. What was your favourite?
Health.
Health was your favourite?
The one you didn't mention, yeah.
The one I didn't mention. And is that something you've discussed with Jamie?
No.
You've kept it bottled up till now?
He lives a very unhealthy life, so maybe he won't have thought of that.
Oh, does he?
Yeah. He's in the music industry, which, they come around with trays of cannabis when you're in a recording studio, and it's compulsory, actually.
Compulsory, of course. Yeah, there's nothing you can do about it, can you?
Then I went to the Home Office, by the way.
Did your son ever ask you to score drugs when you were the health minister?
A couple of times, yeah. A couple of times. I scored them quite high, actually.
But you think that he won't know that, or you think he will know that?
I don't think he'll have a clue.
What do you think he'll say then?
Education.
OK. Jamie, what do you reckon?
I think education.
2 points. And what was it about health that you loved?
It was the 60th anniversary of the National Health Service. It was a good time. It was 2 years.
A lot of parties?
As opposed to my normal 2 months. A lot of parties, yeah. Nurses.
And it's the end of the first round. Still no point in crying about it. Instead, let's look at the scores, which, as always on It's Not What You Know, have been independently verified by some people that we know. In this case, the Royal College of Midwives. Met up with them early this week, and they are a great bunch of lads. Never mind the babies, they can certainly deliver a roaring night out. Loads of hot water, and by goodness did we get through the towels. Also, if I hear a better anecdote about dilation this year, I'll be surprised and sick. And we can see that in third place is Diane, but in joint first place, Alan and Frankie. Well, we've already found out how well the nominees know the panellists. Now we're going to see how well the panellists know their nominees. This time we start with Diane Morgan. Diane, let's find out if, so to speak, you have any idea who your father really is. Peter, we said to him, what is the best piece of advice you've ever given your daughter? What do you think he might have said?
Well, he's quite a negative person. He's probably the most negative person I've ever met. And his motto is, don't get your hopes up and then you'll never be disappointed. Which is quite bleak. So he probably said that. That's probably his best advice.
Did he send you out into the world with those words ringing in your ears?
No, well, when I was at school, I was getting picked on quite a lot. And his advice to me then was, I know you're being picked on and everything, and you're not having a great time at school, you know, but just remember, these are the happiest days of your life. So try and enjoy it. That's what he said. Yeah, so he probably said, don't get your hopes up and you'll never be disappointed.
Crikey. Right, let's ask Peter.
When toast gets stuck in the toaster, don't try and get it out with a fork before unplugging the toaster.
When toast gets stuck in the toaster?
Yeah, they were always telling me not to get a crumpet out of the toaster with a fork. So I used to use a spoon.
Right, sadly, you get no points for that incredibly depressing answer. Let's test the unerring instincts of Alan Johnson once again. Alan, we asked Jamie, what's the thing your father does that most embarrasses you? Where do you think he began?
I kiss him when I see him, which is sometimes not advisable given that he's in front of his colleagues and things like that. He thinks he's a bit old for that. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's 55, but I don't see him doing that. I kiss him.
All the kissing. Jamie, what's your opinion?
Well, he still does it now. If we're crossing the road, he still holds on to me as if I'm not capable.
Is that true? You hold on to him when you're crossing the road together?
I do. Just hold his arm.
Just how stoned is this guy?
How old is he in reality?
41.
41. Do you think that he's not capable, or are you?
Yeah, I just think I'm overprotective and worried about the traffic, obviously.
I think you sound very sensible, Alan.
You try crossing Hyde Park Corner at that time of night.
What time of night are the two of you reeling about? No points, sadly. Last in this round we go to Frankie. Frankie, if there's one thing that irritates Stuart about life, what is it?
Oh, I don't know.
Is he an irritable guy, or is he pretty laid back?
Oh, no, not at all. I couldn't think of a single thing that bothers him.
Want to have a guess at just something? Or is he too busy writing down what you say about comedy critics and things like that?
He used to be very religious, so maybe he's not so fond of the idea of religion anymore.
The idea of religion. There we are, quite a biggie. OK, Stuart, reveal all.
I don't like football fans assuming that you've got any interest in what they're saying, especially when they're maybe shouting it at you through a window or something like that.
I don't like it when football fans think you've got any interest in anything they're saying, especially when they're shouting it through a window.
You've got to understand, in Glasgow that doesn't sound odd at all.
Yes, I might suggest if Stuart hates listening to the opinions of football fans, it may be time for him to consider retuning his radio from 5 Live. Or perhaps move away from a city in which every moral, political or religious opinion you have can only be expressed through the prism of substandard football. Bit of fun. No points. Well, it's the end of round 2, and it's time to look at the scores, which, as usual on It's Not What You Know, have been independently verified by some people that we know. In this case, the Viking Society. Met up with them early this week, have to say, great bunch of lads. Although a little prickly when it comes to facing up to their past. Made a couple of light quips about Viking sexual conduct in the 5th century, and the next thing I knew, woke up in the middle of the Thames estuary in a burning longboat. And we can see that in 3rd place is Diane, in 2nd place is Alan, in 1st place is Frankie. or excitement. It's fingers on buzzers time. I'll give you the answer to a question. What you have to do is tell me which of the nominees gave that answer. Alan Johnson's son, Jamie, Diane Morgan's dad, Peter, or Frankie Boyle's friend, Stuart. If you buzz in and you're wrong, a point will be deducted from your overall score. I cannot stress enough the importance of remaining calm. Which of the nominees, Jamie, Peter, or Stuart, said that if they were an animal, they would be a gazelle? Alan?
It certainly wasn't Jamie. Peter.
OK, who could it be?
A gazelle.
Correct, 2 points.
I love the fact that this guy just comes across as this kind of northern depressive, and yet inside he's a gazelle.
Yes, I can just imagine an infant Peter Morgan gazing out of the window in rapt fascination at the gazelles as they prance and run through his hometown of Bolton in Lancashire. 2 points, Alan. Next, which of our 3 nominees said that their motto in life is never trust a working person who votes Conservative?
That must be Alan's son.
Alan's son. OK, let's see who lives by that credo.
Don't trust a working person who votes Conservative.
Excellent.
Knew it.
You knew that, did you? It is, yes, it's Peter Morgan. I have to say, shockingly bigoted comment. We would normally get a lot of complaints for something like that, but all of those listeners switched off 20 minutes ago when they heard the words Frankie Boyle. Which nominee claimed they had never in their life drunk a whole cup of tea? Diane?
I think that's Jamie.
Let's see who it is.
I've never drank a full cup of tea.
Oh, I'm afraid it was Stuart. Stuart was his lunch.
In what context could that possibly have come up? Why has he never drunk a full cup of tea?
Well, some of us just don't have the nerve, frankly. Perhaps he's easily distracted, or perhaps he simply never remembers he doesn't like tea until it's too late. I'd love a cup... Oh, it's this again. It's this. Next, which of our 3 nominees, Jamie, Stuart or Peter, said if they could go back in time, it would be to the 1950s? Alan?
Jamie.
Let's see who went for the 50s.
I think the 1950s were a really good time.
The 1950s, Peter. Why was that?
There was a sense of optimism about, I think. That kind of...
A sense of optimism.
Has he picked a time just before he was born?
Alan Johnson has a rather different view of the 50s, to judge from his appearance on Desert Island Discs.
I remember it as quite a violent time. I remember women fighting bare knuckle in the street. You know, I was attacked lots of times.
Yes, and that atmosphere of violence, grimness and awe is me very much what Peter Morgan misses about modern-day Bolton. Well, it's the end of that round, and as ever on It's Not What You Know, the scores have been independently verified by someone that we know, in this case, Cher. Went out with her early this week, let me tell you, she is a great bunch of lads. Just a regular girl. It's easy to forget just how down-to-earth she is for a woman who has repeatedly rebuilt her own face and likes to go around dressed as a bird of prey. And we can see that in third place is Diane, in second place is Frankie, and out in front it's Alan. Well, it's time for round 4, and we start this round with a cutting from the South Devon Railway. 2.5 miles in length, this railway cutting previously allowed trains to pass smoothly through the hills to the west of Buckfastleigh. Our thanks to Brian Cuffs of Tavistock for sending that in. Yeah, thanks for that, Brian, you imaginary bastard. This round is called The Big One. In this round, each panellist will have to summon up everything they know about their nominee and answer the following all-important question for a potentially game-changing 4 points. What is your nominee's favourite piece of cutlery? Frankie Boyle, you are first to step up to what is a metaphorical and at the same time painfully literal plate. What do you think your friend Stuart Muirhead believes to be his favourite piece of cutlery?
Spoon. A teaspoon. Completely untainted by tea. Loved it.
Let's see what Stuart went for.
Knife.
A knife, heavens.
By that stage of the interview, he's clearly wondering what's going on.
Not unreasonably. No points, sadly. Diane, could you yet lay your hands on these coasters? All depends on what your father considers his preferred eating implement.
I think it could be a fork, because it can double up as a sort of knife, can't it? Can I say a spork?
You're going to say a fork. Peter?
No, spork. It's half spoon, half fork.
Oh, sorry, half spoon, half fork. A spork. OK. They exist, aren't they? They're commercially available. They've as much right to be here as we have. Peter?
A fork.
A fork, he said. Not a spork.
He wasn't going to say spork, was he? Ridiculous looking back now.
To be fair, spork seemed more likely than gazelle.
Yeah.
And finally, Alan, one more question to go. So many points to play for. Get this right, and history will record that at least some small way you managed to atone for your party's performance in the 2010 general election. Alan Johnson, what is your son's cutlery choice?
I'm going to go for fork.
Let's see if you're right. Jamie?
Teaspoon.
Oh, gosh, so close. That's right, not for Jamie Johnson, the gaudy knives and forks of Peter Morgan and Stuart Muirhead. For him, a humble teaspoon is riches indeed. No points. Goodness me, what an upsetting round. So it's the end of the show, and as ever on It's Not What You Know, the scores have been independently verified by some people that we know, in this case the Shetland Fiddlers Society. Met up with them earlier this week, I have to say. Great bunch of lads. We went out for a meal. I say we went out for a meal. I sat on my own while they went from table to table playing Happy Birthday to various diners. Regardless of whether it was their birthday or not. It was actually quite a wretched evening. And the final scores show that in third place is Diane, in second place is Frankie, but heading off with those melamine coasters lying in the footwell of his car, it's Alan Johnson! So, thank you to our panellists, Alan Johnson and his son Jamie, Diane Morgan and her father Peter, and Frankie Boyle and his friend Stuart. Thank you to you for listening. I guess after all it just goes to show, it's not what you know. Good night! It's Not What You Know was hosted by me, Miles Jupp. The script was written by myself and James Kettle. The producer was Sam Michelle.